Hi everyone, welcome back to Coding Problem Solving series, and today we will be solving Leetcode question 136, which is very famous by the name single number. Now let's quickly read the problem statement. So it says that given a non-empty array of integers nums, every element appears twice except for one. We have to find that single one element. Now, looking at example 1, where we have been given an input array nums, the element 2 appears twice and the element 1 appears only once, which is our output. Similarly, moving to example 2, in the input array nums, all the element appears twice except this one element 4, which is our output. And similarly in example 3, we have got an input array nums with size 1 and this single element is the output because it appears one time. Now if you pay attention, then the problem statement has one more line which says that you must implement a solution with linear runtime complexity, that is, having a time complexity of order n, which is linear, and use only constant extra space, that is, having a space complexity of order 1. But let's forget this statement for a few minutes and focus on 3 possible approaches to solve this problem. So in our first approach, we will use 2 for loops. The first for loop with pointer I to traverse the array, and the second for loop with pointer j to find the duplicate of nums I by comparing ith element with every other element of the array for each value of I. So this is an example of a solution having a for loop with another nested for loop, thus leading to a time complexity of order on square and a constant space complexity of order 1. So this is a brute force solution, and let's now reduce this time complexity to order n with our second approach. Now with our second approach, we will be using a HashMap data structure to form key value pairs of individual unique elements and their corresponding frequencies. And at last, the key having value as 1 will be our single number and thus the output. Now this solution requires a single traversal of the array with a single for loop, thus leading to a time complexity of order n, where n is the number of elements in the input array. However, since we are using extra space in the form of HashMap data structure, so its space complexity now increases to be of order n. Now there is a definite scope of improvement in the space complexity to reduce it further with our third approach. So in our third and final approach, we will be using a mathematical XOR operation to find the single number. Now let's first understand what do you mean by a XOR operation. So we have to understand 2 simple rules. Any number a XOR with 0 gives back the number, and any number a XOR with itself gives us 0. Now applying a for loop with pointer I to traverse the array and this XOR operation on our input array, we will get a mathematical equation that looks something like this. Now applying the 2 rules of XOR operation to this equation, we get this simplified equation. Further simplifying, and finally we get our single number, which is our output. Now since this solution requires a single traversal of the input array, so the time complexity is linear, that is of the order n, and since we are not using any extra space, the space complexity comes down to the order 1, that is a constant space complexity, which is our optimum solution. Now let's code this solution. So here is our solution method single number, which takes one argument nums of type integer array and returns an integer. Now let's start coding. So at first we will initialize a result variable to the first element of our input array, and let's now start traversing the nums array with the help of for loop, starting with the second element of the array. Now inside the for loop, we will run the XOR operation of the variable result with each element nums I. And after completing all the iterations of this for loop, we will simply return our result variable. Thanks to the XOR operation, our result variable will now contain the required single number. Now let's run this solution for the first test case. Great, it's passed. Now let's submit the solution. So our solution is now since we are using a single for loop, so time complexity of this solution is linear, that is of the order n, where n is the number of elements in the input array, and space complexity comes out to be of order 1, that is a constant space velocity because we are not using any extra space. So this brings us to the end of this video. Please like and share this video and subscribe the channel for more informational content. Thank you and see you next time.